Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start the intro, the SCORE intro. You are attending Do I Need a Bookkeeper and How Do I Find One? This is being presented by Gloria Spence. She is a SCORE Boston mentor for us and does different presentations for us, and we're very glad to have her today with us. So let me tell you a little bit about SCORE right up front. We offer free and confidential mentoring. We are mentoring currently by video, phone, and email. You can meet with a mentor as often as you like. It's always free. There is no limit. Oftentimes people will have more than one mentor. That's also a possibility as you work through the different business areas that you need assistance with. If we can't find someone in our chapter or in your chapter or in the district, we can pull from the expertise and experience of mentors nationwide. And as you can see, there's volunteers throughout the nation, and there's quite a number of them to choose from. Especially now as business is kind of starting up after the pandemic, it's a great time to do a business tune-up if you've already got a mentor. Reach out to them, reach out to your chapter and ask them to schedule you, bounce some ideas off them, let them know what your new plans are, all those wonderful things. They love hearing from their past clients. I will be putting this in chat, but here's the link for all the different chapters in our district. You can find your mentor there. You can find tools and templates. You can find recordings of past webinars, all kinds of information. If you don't want to go through the website, put a note in chat. I'll reach out to you and make sure you get connected with the right chapter. We are going to try and utilize Q&A for questions. It just allows me to keep track especially if there's a lot of questions, to make sure that our presenter can answer all of them. The chat can be used for comments and that type of interaction. Certainly. Google My Business. If you enjoy the presentation today, we wouldn't mind you leaving us a review. And I'm gonna introduce Gloria. She has been the director of finance for some different companies. I think she'll probably give a little bit more on her background, so I will let her do that. Let me get to the correct presentation.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. And I appreciate you coming to I Need a Bookkeeper and More. My background is I was with Hearst Television as the director of finance. Most of my background is finance related. So I do a number of webinars that pertain to the finance area. So if you like this one, come back to some of our other ones. So today we're going to talk about, excuse me, getting a bookkeeper, needing one, and how do I get one? And a little bit of background, this is a fairly new webinar, and the reason why I brought it, suggested that we do one is that through my travels of working with different clients, I have found that so many new business owners don't have bookkeepers, that they try and do all these finances themselves. And so I really want to try to impress upon people how important it is to have a bookkeeper to kind of free yourself up to do what you need to do for your business. So if we can proceed here with the next slide. Whoops, we got some more intro there. Oh, go back one more. So what's a bookkeeper? So a bookkeeper is somebody who records the daily transactions, and they do it on a timely basis. And the basic transactions are the foundations for your financial statements. So without accurate and timely recording of your business transactions, you're not going to have good, meaningful financial statements to be able to actually run your business. And I do know that this can be a daunting task for people, and reading financial statements can be daunting, but You don't have to know it all. You just have to know enough to make some good decisions for your business. Next. Okay. So there's two ways of getting a bookkeeper. You can do it, hire somebody in-house, and you can outsource it. You can hire a bookkeeping service. Now, this presentation is going to be geared towards the outsourcing option of doing it. But I will talk a little bit about the in-house as we go along. So what's the difference? Well, in-house, if you hire somebody, put somebody on your payroll, technically you have more control over what they do. So you could theoretically have them do something else when they're free, if they're not just doing bookkeeping. And small businesses usually don't have enough work for somebody to be there full-time. Sure, you could have somebody part-time, but it also requires more managing. You're going to have to manage this person, and that takes up more of your time. And finding the person, interviewing them, screening them can be difficult because you're not going to know if you have a bad one until you hire them, and then have somebody there who's been there for a while, and then you're going to start over again. So leave that hiring process to somebody else. Believe it or not, there's a greater risk of fraud when you have somebody in-house doing your bookkeeping. What's fraud? Taking money from you, using your credit cards, cutting themselves some checks, paying somebody outside of their paying extra vendors for things that have not happened. So there is that potential risk of somebody doing your bookkeeping in-house. Outsourcing, more professional. There are more areas of expertise in the business. They usually require them to have some continuous training. This one here, providing backup is key. If your bookkeeper quits, you have to start all over again or do it yourself. If one of the bookkeepers in your outsourced bookkeeping company quits, they're just going to reassign the work to one of their other employees. It's going to be seamless for you. You probably may not even know that somebody has left and that they've reassigned it, but you probably do. But you won't have to worry about that. A bookkeeping service can offer more services available than just actually doing your bookkeeping. So it gives you access to more services. Somebody is reviewing their work. Somebody is looking at what they're doing and making sure that it's correct. So you'll get a better product. Internal controls, less risk of fraud because they've got other people doing different things. They'll split it up a little bit. And really, it could be even less expensive for you as well. So what's the difference? So there's three categories: a bookkeeper, an accountant, and a CPA. So what's the difference between a bookkeeper versus an accountant? Well, a bookkeeper, a degree is not required. They perform basic day-to-day transactions. They record the money coming in and they record the money going out. It's a data entry position. The hourly rate is less. They're going to be less expensive. They should be able to prepare basic financial reports, but not all bookkeepers will be able to do that. You hire an accountant. They will have a bachelor's degree at a minimum. So they're going to require more money. There's somebody there again that's going to review the book. They probably are going to review the bookkeeper's work. They will be able to handle more advanced accounting, like if your business has inventory, if you've got equipment and need depreciation, they'll handle accruals better. But again, the rate is going to be higher. They should be able to analyze your financials and make some recommendations to you. And a big key difference is that they may prepare your tax return. Some accountants do taxes. Sometimes just the CPAs will do taxes, but that is an option as well. And once these guys look at your financials, they'll be able to, if they're working already with your financials and they do the tax return, they'll be very familiar with what's going on. So what's a CPA? Certified Public Accountant, and they are ranked among the most trusted professions. They've got strict code of ethics for compliance. and they must pass a rigorous CPA exam, which is the equivalent of a lawyer who has to pass a bar exam. So they touch upon most everything that would be required in the financial accounting areas. And they too are required to maintain continuous education to keep their skill sets and their knowledge up to date that's current. Because a number of things do change in this business. Not a lot of the basics are still the same, but they do have to keep abreast of everything. So is a CPA important to your small business? It is, but the bookkeeper and the accountant are probably the areas that you're going to be working with them the most. A CPA is going to be a lot more expensive. So you don't want a CPA to do your bookkeeping. You are going to be overpaying for it for sure. So why is it important for a small business? They're going to prepare your taxes and you're going to use them as a consultant, a high-level consultant, when you have some tax issues and anything that's at a higher level. And again, you're not going to use that on a day-to-day basis. It may be cyclical for you. They can give you some financial advice. They'll make sure that you are in compliance with your industry. If there's anything that has to be reported or required, they'll help you with that. And I think every small business should use a CPA to help them form their entity. When you pick your entity, there are two reasons why it's important. One, you want to legally protect yourself. And then the other one, you want to find out what's the best tax strategy. Where will you get the most advantage with the entity that you choose? The other reason why it's important to talk to a CPA is they will help you understand how you get paid in your business. If you're a sole proprietor or a single owner LLC, you're not going to get paid on a regular basis. You're not going to get paid every paycheck. You're not going to get paid through payroll. You're going to get paid based on how much extra cash you have left over. So these are things that are really important for a small business to understand. And this is where a CPA would come in handy for you. So little quiz here for you to answer in the chat box. How confident are you with your current bookkeeper? Not at all and totally. So if you, and again, this would be whether you are doing your books. You could also let us know that too. I'm doing my own books and I have no idea what I'm doing. Or I have somebody else that's doing and I'm not sure if they're doing it right. Kind of let us know if it's you doing them or outsource. And let's see what we got there.
So Joe replied, he said he gave it a 2.
2, that is not good. Joe, I'm glad you're here. 3. Anybody else? So my suggestion, a 4, okay. My suggestion is if you pick anything 7 or below, you need a bookkeeper. You know, you're not going to pick a doctor that's a 4 or a 5 or a 3. You know, why would you accept a bookkeeper who is below average? So, yeah, so anything a 7 or below, I would say you need a new bookkeeper. You need to at least start thinking about it. All right. So how do I know when I need one? Excuse me. First of all, you want to know how many transactions do you have per month? If you have 2 transactions, 2 clients a month, and if you're lucky enough that these 2 clients will pay you $10,000 each month, you don't need a bookkeeper, probably. You could probably do that by yourself. But as the number of your transactions increases, it becomes more work. It doesn't matter if the transactions are $1,000 each or $10 each. The more transactions, the harder this becomes and the more tedious it becomes. Do you have any background being a bookkeeper? Are you an accountant? Did you ever do any of this in your past? If you didn't, then you probably don't want to start doing it now. How many hours a week, if you're doing this yourself, how many hours a week do you spend on keeping track of your books? Just remember, those hours that you spend on these books could be spent on time growing your business, bringing in more clients, or other areas of your business being neglected. Most likely, the bookkeeping piece of your business is, if you're doing this yourself, is being neglected. And you really want to take care of this, or you really want to free yourself up with the time that you're spending on your books to go do something else. So how well do you know of your books? How much income? Do you know what your income is? Do you know what your expenses are? Hopefully, having a good bookkeeper, you'll know those things just by looking at them, not by doing them. This one here is very key. How long does it take you to get your tax information together? If it's taking you more than a day, more than 4 hours, then you need a bookkeeper, because you're just not doing something right. You should be able to give your accountant 2 or 3 reports at the end of the year, at the end of the tax year, and then they will come back and ask you some minor questions. If it takes you longer than that, then you need somebody else to be helping you with this. Okay. So why is a bookkeeper important for a startup? So a startup in particular, if you're just starting out, you don't have any software, and hopefully a bookkeeper can help you to pick up the best software for your business. Now, the downside here is what you have to be careful of is if you already have software, if you already have QuickBooks, if you already have Gusto, if you already have something, I would be suspect if they came in and said, oh no, you got to change your system. If you've been working with this software for a while, I wouldn't want a bookkeeper to come in there and tell me right out the gate, oh, you need to get this software. And maybe the only software that they know. You don't want to do that right away. A chart of accounts with numbers. Your bookkeeper should insist on working with a chart of account with numbers. And they should set that up with you, for you. They should be able to set up your bank and credit card accounts electronically connected to whatever software you have so that you can do a lot of your transactions electronically. They should help you set up a balance sheet. They should also offer you some basic software training for the business owner so that when you're playing around with your numbers on the weekend or in the evening, you want to go in and look at something, you should be able to know how to do that. And they should know how to create financial reports for you. Okay. So if you're interviewing a bookkeeper, you might want to keep this list close to you. All right, because what's a bookkeeper going to do for you? Well, they should record monthly entries and daily recording of transactions. They should invoice your customers. They should manage your accounts receivable, make sure that your customer payments are getting applied against the right account, and that they should be able to let you know who has not paid you. You should be able to manage your accounts payable. They should make sure that you stay current on your invoices, the ones that you pay out. And if they don't stay current, they should be able to follow your instructions as to when you pay people. If your business has any expense reimbursement tracking, some businesses do what they can also call a pass-through, where you if you incur a direct expense for a particular client, that you keep track of that and bill that back out. Again, create monthly financial reports. They should reconcile your bank and your credit card. And then if you have any loans, they should reconcile those every month. They should keep track of your state sales tax, whether it's a meals tax or retail tax. They should keep track of that and make sure that gets paid promptly. If you have no payroll service, you're going to have to issue 1099s for somebody. for some of your vendors maybe. And then at the end of the month, they should be able to make any adjustments and they should close the month out for you. And some advanced tasks that maybe a bookkeeper could do or should do. Manage your fixed assets, any capital equipment that you had to buy. If your business accepts security deposits, you want them to be able to keep track of that. And then payroll, they need to post your payroll if you have employees to the proper accounts as well. So it's a lot of stuff. If you're not doing that, so you're missing some pieces, right? So what should you expect? Some more, they should have experience with your software. They should not tell you to automatically switch to what they know. Experience in your industry is preferred, but not required. Most accountants and bookkeepers can adapt to the industry. Document outlining what services you will receive. And those on that prior page are some of the things that you're going to be looking for. You don't want to have to be committed to them for a long term. I mean, it would be fair to get a 30-day or a 60-day out clause, but you certainly don't want to commit to them for a year or two. They need to, again, the chart of accounts, I've repeated this throughout here, and because it's very important, and you can tell the quality of a bookkeeper and accountant by whether or not they insist on a chart of accounts with numbers or not. If they don't, then they're not a very professional, connected to the accounting world. If they don't insist on, if they don't insist on a chart of account with numbers. 4 other, what I would call soft skills that are definitely needed. They need to be accurate. What they put in there needs to be accurate. And it needs to be timely, consistent deliverables. If they're going to commit to you to close your books and to give you financial statements by the 10th of the month, you should have them by the 10th of the next month, not 4 months later. So giving you financials on a quarterly basis, in my opinion, is not acceptable. You want to look at your financials every month. They need to be communicative to you. They need to communicate to you on a regular basis, a scheduled basis, or at your beck and call. They're not going to like that at your beck and call, but you need to come up with a way an agreeable way that they are accessible to you. They should be patient with you because you're going to ask them what they think are very basic and maybe stupid questions, but they're important to you. So they need to be patient and answer your questions timely as well. Next, there you go. So when you're interviewing a bookkeeper, you want to ask them, what software are you most and least familiar with? After they take a look at your books, you want to ask them, how long do you think you will need to spend on my books on any given month? How familiar are you with my industry? In which industry do you specialize in? When do you generally deliver monthly financials? Do you have deadlines that you expect some things from me? What do I need to give you? How can I help you be timely? I mean, if you don't do what you're supposed to on your end, it's going to be pretty unfair to expect them to deliver things to you timely too. So you're going to have to work with them, and if there's anything that you agree to give to them on a regular basis, you need to make sure that that gets done as well. How do you communicate with your clients? One of the things that I have found is that some small business owners, they complain because they say, I ask them a question and they don't get back to me. Well, you want to ask them up front. How do you communicate? Is it email? Is it phone call? Is it text? Is it whatever? And then you want to ask them, when can I expect to have my questions answered? Do you want them to drop? Do you expect them to drop what they're doing all the time for you? That might be a little bit too much, but you don't want to wait weeks, and you don't probably, depending on the seriousness of the question or the importance of the question, you probably don't want to wait days either. But again, that's why you've got to ask them that question. You want to ask them, how do they protect your information from an IT standpoint and also from a staffing segregation of duties? How will your review processes handled? How do you charge? A monthly fee, or do you charge by the hour? Know what you're getting and not getting. So that's why you want them to give you a list, something documented of what services they're going to provide for you. So this may not seem like a relevant question. How many employees do you have and how many clients do you have? But it will give you a sense of how responsive they might be to you. For example, if they have 2 employees and they have 100 clients, you're not going to get a whole lot of attention from them. If it's the reverse and they have 10 employees and 2 clients, they're building their business, you're going to get a lot of attention. So that's why that number is important. What's the right number for the ratio to be? I don't know that, but you'll get a sense of it. And if you like, you can ask them more questions on it if you're not sure if what they give you is a good number, a good ratio. Ask them up front, what do you need from me? What do you need for me to get your job to be done timely, cost effectively, and accurately? Definitely ask for reference. Obviously, they're only going to give you your good clients, their favorite clients, but you still got to ask and you still got to hear from them. So I'm going to pause now. Does anybody have any questions before we move on?
Yeah, we do actually have a question, but before I ask it, someone had asked about a handout with some of these points that they need to have. We're happy to send that out to you. I'm going to put my email address in the chat if you want to let me know that if you want the actual bullet points. Otherwise, I will also put in chat the link where you can find the recording for this event. It'll be posted by tomorrow. Okay, question. Michael asks, what are your thoughts on hiring a virtual bookkeeper from, like, let's say the Philippines or Kenya? What are the probable advantages and disadvantages?
Well, that's a good question. It's an interesting question. I would be very hesitant. They may not be as familiar with the bookkeeping of how the U.S. does it. They may be very good. They may not be. I don't generally have a problem with the virtual bookkeeper because you could really get a bookkeeper from anywhere in the U.S. They don't have to be somebody local. In today's technology world, you send files to them electronically. I would venture to say that there are quite a few good bookkeepers here that you could get. Maybe why would you do that? Are you doing that for cost purposes? I don't know. I would be a little bit hesitant because your financials are very important. And they may not, I mean, bookkeepers don't have a lot of information about taxes, but they may know a little bit more about our taxes. That's just my opinion.
Okay, David, oh, I'm sorry, were you done?
David, I'll stop.
David asks, can you briefly explain what a chart of accounts is?
Yes, excellent question. A chart of accounts is a list of your categories of your income and your expenses. So if you're in business and you have a restaurant and well, let me do something let me do a landscaping business instead. I have a landscaping business and I do commercial landscaping and I do residential landscaping. I'm going to want to know which one of those businesses is more profitable for me. So I'm going to want to keep track of my commercial business and my residential business. So they will be separate lines in my chart of accounts. In my expenses, I will list all of my expenses. I will list my expenses by utilities, marketing, payroll taxes, health benefits, office supplies, subscriptions, QuickBooks fees. Those are my chart of accounts. I will list all my major expenses in some type of a format that will be able to categorize both my income and my expenses when I'm looking at my financials. Does that help?
Yeah, if it doesn't, please go ahead and ask another question, but that's all the questions. Oh, here, I have another one. Elizabeth says, I've done our bookkeeping for 25 years, but we've recently acquired a new business that requires more communication and marketing. I need to pass something off. Is it better to outsource the bookkeeping or the marketing?
I would suggest the bookkeeping. That would be my opinion, the bookkeeping. I guess you'd have to take a look at and ask the question, how much marketing is there? And, you know, maybe you want to be involved with the marketing in the beginning. And then maybe when you get bigger than that, you'll want to farm that out. You know, I think that's a good question. You'd have to think about what all are you going to be. Let me ask this other question. What is your skill set? Do you know a lot about marketing and communications? If you know a little bit about that, and you know more about that than bookkeeping, although you've been doing your bookkeeping for 25 years, huh? So you probably have that down pretty pat now that I think about it. Good question. I'd have to think about that. I think you're going to need to do some research in what marketing areas you need. Maybe you do farm that out since you're already been doing your bookkeeping for this long. Maybe you stay with that.
Okay, that's all the questions I have right now.
That's a very excellent.
That was a good question.
Yeah, stumped me. Okay, so now we are on to if my books are a mess. I'm going to ask you to put in the chat again. Who thinks their books are a mess? Anybody want to fess up in the chat? Yeah, those who the people that answered with the low ratings said their books are a mess. Okay, so do you have to start all over? Most likely you do. Is that okay? You might not have a choice, and yes, it's okay to do that. If you've been operating for less than a year, and you know that year mark is kind of a guess, a range, a starting point. If you've been in business for less than a year and you don't have a lot of transactions, you may be able to go back and salvage what you have. Or you could get the bookkeeper to go back and redo it. But if you've been in business for a couple of years and you've got a lot of transactions, you may just have to start all over again. And you may have to, I mean, for example, in QuickBooks, they'll keep your information there. You know, sometimes you lose the history of your customer history when you start all over again. But my guess is that if your books are a mess, your customer history is a mess as well. So, you know, you may, it's a small sacrifice to give up to start over again. But if you can start over with somebody doing it the right way, it'll be beneficial to you in the long run. If you're doing the books yourself and you're not a bookkeeper, you don't have an accounting background, if you've not been doing your book for 25 years like that other attendee has, you need to admit that you aren't one and let it go. Move on. Do what you're good at. And then again, my chart of accounts. Most important first step. If you look at a financial statement, you'll see why chart of accounts is important, because it will organize your numbers into something that will make sense. So where do I find one? The best way to find one is referrals. We have some here at SCORE, but I highly recommend asking other small business owners who they work with and do they like them. You're going to find most business owners are going to go, they're okay. But you need to really start with the referrals. QuickBooks, what you can do is, if you have QuickBooks, you can kind of pick through them. And you could use QuickBooks because they have them too. But you know, they're going to be limited in what they do. You know, you're not going to be able to go back to them as easily as you are to somebody that's in your employment, you know, or that you're paying for and have a personal relationship with. So, but you could use that name and call them on the side, because I do think that a lot of the accountants, bookkeepers that work for QuickBooks, they also do work on the side as well. They have their own other business. So you could reach them through that. So if you have QuickBooks or any other software, but in particular QuickBooks, it is not as easy as they say it is. It is great software, but you do need to have some basic accounting skills to master it properly, correctly. So if you've not been able to do your QuickBooks, don't beat yourself up about it. Except that that's not your sweet spot, and get somebody else who does. So in summary, don't put this decision off. If you've been, you know, if you've been working with a bookkeeper that you just don't like, go get another one. Your business will not grow or grow as much without good financials. If you're doing these numbers, you need to take the time that you're spending and angsting about your numbers and reallocate it to a different area of your business. It will be money well spent. One question that usually comes up is how much does it cost to have a bookkeeper? So the range, in my mind, the range could be anywhere from $40 an hour to $100 an hour. I think the sweet spot of what you should think about paying is between $65 and $85 an hour. Maybe nothing wrong with the person who's charging $40 an hour. This may be, you know, you may be her only account, his only account, and this is all they want to do, and this is all they care. You know, they don't want a whole lot, and that may work. $100 is on the steep end. Again, this depends on where you live. You know, if you live further outside of Boston, you're going to pay less. If your bookkeeper is closer into Boston, you're going to pay more. But that's what I would say, anywhere from 40 to 100. You know, if you're paying $100 for a bookkeeper, they better be really good, because now you're getting into accountant hourly wages now. So that's why I say the $65 to the $85 range is reasonable. So if you're still struggling with this, put your name in the chat, and Teresa will help you to find somebody that can help you with it, help you with the thought process of it all. And again,
I'd like to offer that up as an option for the person that asked about doing the marketing or the bookkeeping. Working with a SCORE mentor, they can help you think through that process to help you make a decision as to which you need to outsource, because they can look at your situation. Okay, so we have another question.
You know what, though, to tag along to that one, you know, and I would suggest that you speak with a marketing person too, not even a bookkeeper, not even a financial person. I would connect with somebody in the marketing area.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Absolutely. Okay, so Elizabeth asks, and what is the average hours needed per week for a small business in it?
And that's a good question too. And I, you know, again, it depends on your activity. Some businesses are more transaction based than others, and so that's going to may require a little bit more time. But I would venture to say, and you know, don't hold me to this, because again, it's going to depend on the industry and you know, your transactions, etc. Anywhere from 5 to 15 hours a month. That's my guess. That's a pretty big range, but yeah, and that's a good question to ask the person that you're working with.
David asks, I use QuickBooks now to run my business and it's horrible. If I hire a bookkeeper, can I ditch QuickBooks and use a better software for running the shop?
What type of business do you have?
If you could throw that in chat real quick, David. Guitar repair. I'm sorry. I'm guessing he must be tracking some inventory with that, or perhaps trying to track inventory with that.
Yeah. Can you be a little bit more specific? Is there a particular area?
Because QuickBooks can be difficult to track inventory.
Yeah, yeah. Do you mind repeating your question again?
Or I can actually allow him to speak if you'd like.
Wait a minute. Let's see.
Yeah.
Well, let me just tell you, QuickBooks is not necessarily horrible. It is hard. And if it's hard if you don't have an accounting background. So I wouldn't necessarily ditch QuickBooks. I would let that bookkeeper, I talked to a bookkeeper before you ditched it.
Okay, he says it doesn't handle my transaction types. It's an accounting software, not a POS system.
Exactly. They are two separate things and you need to get a different POS system. Yes, two completely things. Now, the POS system should be able to talk to your QuickBooks, but they are two separate systems.
And if it doesn't talk to it directly, then you need to print a report each day from the POS system and put that information into your QuickBooks.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And I actually don't know of a software that does both super effectively.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay. Oh, sorry.
I'm working with a client who has a POS system called Clover. And I think it's new. I've not heard of it before I spoke with her. And that is one thing we're trying to figure out, is trying to figure out how we can find those transactions. So they are two separate systems and yeah, that's not easy.
I have another question. Do you know of a blog post that that talks about how to do your own bookkeeping efficiently and properly with certain practices, maybe daily or weekly?
You said there is one, or do I know?
No, do you know of one?
No, I don't. And then I go back again to, I'm going to ask the question, why do you want to do your books?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to do them there yourself?
You can find a lot of tutorials on YouTube, but again, that's still, you know, like what Gloria said. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just, you know, it would be me like, I mean, I'm not a technical person. I mean, it'd be like me going in there and figuring out how to program something. I'm going, you know, I mean, I would be torturing myself. Why do I have to know that? You don't. All you have to know is how to read the information and understand it.
As we wait for a few more questions, I had to stop sharing so I could grab some links for you all, so you can get the recording. You know where to find the recording tomorrow. Let me grab that for everyone. This is where the recording will post to tomorrow. And I also wanted to give you the links to the chapters in our district. That information to you. Okay. Do we have any further questions that you'd like to ask today? And we definitely do strongly encourage you to work with a SCORE mentor on these types of questions to further this topic if you need to. They are free, confidential. We have a
Yeah,
thank you.
we,
Go ahead,
we will
Gloria.
match you up with the, with an appropriate counselor and, again, you can always, what we find happens often is clients will come in asking for a particular area. And then once they start talking to a counselor, they find out that they need help in some other area. And we can either, that person can either help you in that area or refer you out.
Okay, I am not seeing any further questions. So I just want to thank Gloria for all the excellent information. Again, I put the link for the recording that should be posted by tomorrow. It will have a transcript with it if you need that. And I want to thank you all for joining us and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, everyone.